Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome, dear students, dear listeners, to the class, which is going to be on cognates, a definition, the impact of cognates on translation, and how the translated material can be influenced by cognates. Because, as we said in class 6, that cognates can be false in terms of their origin and their misleading production and pronunciation. Today, we are going to do two things. We are going to explain the notion cognates first, and then we are going to have a practice on translation and show how a translator can be challenged by cognates in the language. Let's first look into the definition of cognates here. So, in cognates in general, they are words in two or more languages, and they have a common etymological order. When I say etymological order, origin, I mean that they have the same historical, let's say, roots, the same historical similarity, i.e., they developed from the same root word in an earlier language. So they often like or sound similar and have a similar meaning. Uh, for example, we have the word democracy in Arabic, ديمقراطية, philosophy in Arabic, فلسفة, culture in Arabic, ثقافة. These words actually entered Arabic through loan translation or transliteration and are considered true cognates because of shared historical or linguistic origins, whether via Greek, Latin, or French. I mean, the origin of words coming from these languages. Do cognates have a kind of can we explain the notion cognates in terms of how they emerge in the language and how the translators can deal with them? The answer is yes. So the answer is yes here. So the cognates in general can be motivated, can be pushed, can be triggered by some historical contact between languages. So when we talk about Arabic, from borrowing from other languages like Greek, Latin, Persian, or English, or other languages. So languages, when they have a kind of contact between themselves, actually we should find and we should expect a kind of historical contact, i.e., borrowing, and this borrowing can create the notion cognates, respectively. Also, in something, an element related to this is called the shared ancestry, in the sense that different languages come from a common ancestor. For example, the Indo-European languages like English, French, and Spanish share many cognates because these, whether they are Germanic or let's say Germanic or let's say Latin, coming from Latin, they have a kind of prototype that is a kind of ancestor that shapes the nature of cognates in general. And finally, loanwords and language modernization in politics and science, computer, culture, and all these technical and high-tech things, we should expect a kind of borrowing, a kind of shared matrix that motivates the existence of, let's say, the existence of cognates. Now we come to types of cognates. In general, when we talk about cognates, actually, we can have a real and original cognates where the same origin, right, and similar meaning exists. So it is true that the loan words or the borrowing process does motivate and does push the true cognates in the sense that they share the same predictive, the same morphological, phonological forms, and at the same time, they share the same history. For example, when we talk about hospice in Latin, and it is hospital in English. So both are cognates, and at the same time, they share the same origin. On the other hand, we can find the so-called falsifiants or false cognates, where words look similar in two languages, but they have different meanings. I think in class six we had some examples on this. So, for example, in English actual, right? The Arabic pronunciation actual may be interpreted as misinterpreted as sometimes فعلي and sometimes real or حقيقي, but doesn't always mean the same. Doesn't always mean the same. In relation to the translation process, which is our business right now, cognates and translation with reference to Arabic, sometimes the cognates actually do help translators into creating better translation and equivalence establishment processes. And on the other hand, they don't. They can mislead. They can be misleading. So, for example, sometimes they can, let's say, they can foster the comprehension process where cognates help translators and learners recognize meanings quickly or the meaning quickly. So, for example, when we have democracy, for example, and democracy, we have different similarity patterns and levels between these two words, like phonetic similarities, semantic similarities, and even sometimes phonological, morphological similarities. And this leads to better facilitation of equivalence. So, sorry, when translating a technical or academic or international terms, uh, cognates offer direct equivalence because cognates actually are assumed to embody the same origin, the same etymological origin among them. On the other hand, we have uh, cognates that actually can be misleading, and they can hinder, and let's say can uh, they can be an obstacle in the way of translators in the process of translation. So they mislead translators into choosing the better word form, like sensible in English. A translator might confuse sensible with sensitive, right? So this actually can be at hand easily in the process of translation. Sometimes there is a kind of contextual mismatch where even true cognates may require different translation depending on the context. In the Arabic translation context, Arabic, as in all languages, has borrowed many terms from English, French, Greek, especially in the medicine, science, and technology. And these borrowed terms often retain their phonetic structure and serve as cognates. Sometimes this scenario with the Islamic cultural and literary terms, there is a kind of resistance which to direct cognates used and required for functional and descriptive translation. Now we move to a kind of, let's say, discussion of a practice here for a passage in English and translated into Arabic. After that, we are going to, let's say, we are going to make a kind of discussion for the a kind of discussion for the, let's say, cognates available here. So, and almost I'm going to read the passage, then doing translation, and then uh, finding out the cognates and how they are translated in the passage. An almost universal feature of most economies is the coexistence of base and broad money instruments. In modern economies, the monetary base consists of small denomination government paper notes, while broad money consists of electronic book entry credits created by the banking system, redeemable in base money. So now here, when we translate it, first let's find the a little bit challenging forms or words, and then do the translation. So let's say universal. The word universal can be translated as عالمي, as كوني, as كلي, right? So here, an almost universal, so it can be كلي, عالمي, عام, right? عالمي, كلي, right? كوني, maybe, right? Feature, سمة, right? ميزة of most economies, اقتصادات, the coexistence. Existence means تواجد. Coexistence means تواجد اثنين بآن واحد. يعني two things exist together of base one and broad money instruments. So instruments here, it can be translated as أداة, أدوات, money, نقد, right? Broad and base can be base أساسي وبرود واسع موسع. In modern economies means اقتصادات حديثة, the monetary base, right? The monetary base, monetary from money, which is نقدي, right? Base أساسي consists of, which is different from contains, right? Because contains cannot have of, right? So it is illegal, right? But when we say consist, it is of, right? So of small denomination government, right? Denomination a government, right? The denomination government paper notes. So paper notes قطع نقدية, right? We have government حكومي, right? Denomination means يعني small papers of low value, while broad money, right? النقد الموسع, right, consists of electronic book entry credits, right? Electronic book entry credits. So here, credits means أرصدة, right? Book entry مسجلة محاسبيا, right? And electronic created by the banking system, right? It is created by the banking system, right? Banking system, النظام المصرفي أو نظام البنكي, redeemable in base money. Redeemable, to redeem, to exchange, to replace in base money, نقد أساسي. So this actually kind of focus upon the main terms that we all encounter in such a translation like this. So when we translate it, we can say the following: that من السمات شبه العامة لمعظم الاقتصادات وجود كل من أدوات النقد الأساسي والنقد الموسع في آن واحد. في الاقتصادات الحديثة a new sentence يتكون الأساس النقدي من أوراق نقدية. So let's say here in an almost universal feature of most economies, an almost, right, universal من السمات شبه العامة, right? And almost came as شبه, right? Universal عامة من السمات شبه العامة for most economies. So we have almost and most. Economies هو وجود is the coexistence of base and broad money. هو وجود كل من وجوده من السمات العامة وجود كل من أدوات النقد الأساسي والنقد الموسع the existence of base and broad money instruments, right? Uh, now, the word coexistence can bear coexistence, uh, let's say, في آن واحد, right? Right? So here, so we have في آن واحد here, وجود شيئين في آن واحد, two things at the same time means coexistence, right? في الاقتصادات الحديثة consists of modern economies. So the monetary base يتكون النقد الأساسي الأساس النقدي من أوراق نقدية حكومية وحكومية من فئات صغيرة, right? So um, let's say the monetary base consists of small denomination government paper notes, right? While the broad money consists of بينما على الجهة الأخرى while this is a very important connector while broad money consists of بينما يتكون أو يحتوي, right, النقد الموسع من أرصدة إلكترونية credits book electronic book entry credits created by the banking system المسجل محاسبيا تنشأ من قبل البنوك تنشئها البنوك and redeemable ويمكن استبدالها بالنقد الأساسي. So the overall translation would be من السمات شبه العامة لمعظم الاقتصادات وجود كل من أدوات النقد الأساسي والنقد الموسع في آن واحد. في الاقتصادات الحديثة يتكون الأساس النقدي من أوراق نقدية حكومية من فئة صغيرة بينما يتكون النقد الموسع من أرصدة إلكترونية تسجل محاسبيا بحيث تنشئها البنوك. Maybe we can add the word بحيث, right, تنشئها البنوك ويمكن استبدالها بالنقد الأساسي. So this is the translation. Now here we let's say we look into the discussion of cognates. We assume that this passage contains these false friends and cognates, and which are, as we said, similar looking words with different meanings between English and Arabic. So we have instruments doesn't mean machines or devices, but rather, right, instruments, right, doesn't, here we have instruments, right, or devices, right? But rather tools or means, right? Not machines or devices. So in this context, monetary instruments, right? So we have to pay attention between the meaning machine, device, or tool, right? Denomination also. We have the word denomination in the context of small denomination government paper notes does not also mean religious sect, but rather monetary denomination, such as 1 JD, 2 JDs, and so on and so forth. Right? Credits also, the word credits, which we saw in the electronic book entry credits, right? So here not only does it mean credits, but here it refers to accounting entries. It refers to accounting entries because we translated it into, let's say, credits, where we translated this as, um, let's say نقد موسع, something like this, right? So here, yes, أرصدة نقد موسع, something like this. Not only does it mean credit, but rather it refers to accounting entries or balances recorded electronically in the banking system. And finally, redeemable, which means can be exchanged, not salvation or atonement, right? So it might be understood in a religious context. So here we find that typically, let's say, typically, the cognates can play a major role in making the translation process a little bit demanding and a little bit more challenging. Okay, let's stop here and thank you.